How did the research of algae fuel come about? Can algae fuel replace petroleum? What are the steps to make algae into a fuel? How does algae fuel affect the environment? What is preventing us from using algae fuel now? Algae fuel has been studied as far back as 1978 under President Jimmy Carter's term. Studies began due to the skyrocketing gas prices during that time. One pro to algae being used as an alternative fuel source is that algae is considered a renewable resource. It produces a more efficient biofuel. This is mainly due to the fact that it is carbon neutral, meaning the CO2 emitted when burned is just absorbed back as food to grow the algae. Algae can also be grown on land that is unsuitable for growth of other types of agriculture. For example, having a factory in the desert would have no effects on the algae growth. Also, producing fuel from algae is a fairly easy process.
The procedure of making algae into fuel is harvesting, extraction, transportation, and transport. In the procedure, one first has to grow the algae and then harvest it. Then one can extract the oil from the algae in three ways. The first method is through an oil press, which simply squeezes the oil from the algae and allows for 75% of the oil to be extracted. The second method is using a hexane solvent, which is a two-step process. The first part requires the pressing of the algae to squeeze out the oil. The second part involves filtration so no chemicals are left in the oil, and in this process you can get 95% of the oil out. The third extraction technique uses supercritical fluids. In this process, carbon dioxide is added to the algae, which causes the lipids in the algae to separate from the biomass. After this process, a layer of lipid water and biomass remain. These lipids are needed to make petroleum-like products, and this is 100% effective. The most common is the oil press, since it is the cheapest of the three methods.
Transesterification is the process of mixing ethanol and the extracted oil. This causes them to react and create biodiesel and glycerol. You would also have a catalyst, sodium ethanolate, to speed up the reaction. Then you centrifuge salt water, ether, and the biodiesel and let it settle into two layers, one of which is the pure biodiesel. The top layer is removed to leave the biodiesel remaining. One of the environmental implications of algae fuel is there is no drilling or mining in making algae biodiesel indoors, so it does not disturb the ecosystems like petroleum. Algae also burns cleaner than gasoline. Certain types of algae in nature can be harmful, such as diatoms and dinoflagellates. By taking these types of algae away, it helps keep the ecosystem safe. One con to algae being used as an alternative fuel source is that further research and implementation will be costly. Also, algae fuel is not that widely used today because it is extremely expensive. Finally, using algae as an alternative fuel source is not that well known, therefore it is difficult to implement in different countries.